I feel like the right place to go is with this Jake Retzlaff story. And, we've been talking to people about this, and I feel like so many people don't understand the situation at BYU. And they don't understand why Jake Retzlaff is transferring away from BYU, according to Pete Thamel at ESPN. We told you 3 weeks ago when this story first came out, Jake Retzlaff was never going to play another down of football at BYU. It was as clear-cut as could be. There was never an argument to be made that Jake Retzlaff did not violate the honor code. As much as I think a lot of BYU fans would like to look past the honor code, or this is not an option. And the hard part about this is it's no longer a question of whether or not Jake Retzlaff violated the honor code at BYU. He admitted in a court filing that he and his accuser had consensual sexual relations. It's over. As soon as that was filed, as soon as this case really became public, I think I even told you on the show the day it happened, it's very difficult to make the argument that there was not sex outside of marriage between this woman and Jake Retzlaff. I believed it. It was my opinion then. That has been backed up by a court filing now. Jake Retzlaff is done at BYU. The good news is the lawsuit against Jake Retzlaff accusing him of just heinous sexual crimes has been withdrawn with prejudice. And I think that is significant because it cannot be refiled. The woman accusing Jake Retzlaff of sexual assault and just all kinds of things we don't need to detail. That lawsuit has been withdrawn with prejudice, which means she cannot refile it. Does that mean there was a settlement? At this point, we don't know. I think that's the likelihood that there was a settlement. That doesn't mean that those are the facts. And I want to make that very clear. We have no idea. We have no finality as to how this case was resolved. But one thing is very clear. Jake Retzlaff will never play another down of football at BYU. He either transfers and goes somewhere else. He is a graduate. He can transfer immediately. Not a problem. If he stays at BYU, he is looking at what some are reporting to be a 7-game honor code suspension. I would be surprised if that is the punishment for violating the honor code. That doesn't seem like much of a punishment. I think it's very rare to see an honor code violation of a sexual nature and not have that person withdraw immediately for some amount of time. We've seen it in the past. I don't think there's any doubt that was always going to be the outcome here. But for somebody like Jake Retzlaff, there is no good ending. There is no positive outcome here. Jake Retzlaff is now forever going to be an accused rapist. Jake Retzlaff is forever going to lose the final year of his eligibility at BYU. We will never know how prolific of a quarterback he could have been. And it feels like almost no matter where Jake Retzlaff lands, he's worse off because of these allegations that he denies, point blank, says it never happened. Jake, the problem here is we've seen this movie before, and whether you're guilty or innocent, it ends poorly for you.
Absolutely. And I think, there clearly is 2 points here. Number one, Jake Retzlaff made a bad decision, and there's no real getting away from that. I think, the moment that you decided to enroll at BYU, you decided to live a certain lifestyle and obviously went against that commitment with these choices. And, so I think that's the first thing is that, everyone needs to accept that, most of this is on Jake, whether we like it or not. He made a choice. He opened himself up to this girl. He let her in, and that didn't work out well for him. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing that's hard is that we don't know, what actually happened. We'll never know what actually happened. We don't know, how accurate the claims are to reality. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. The problem is we'll never know. And I think that that's the difficult part of these situations is we all feel, we all have our opinions, our emotions around, what we think this looks like. But the reality is we're never going to know. And I think that's what's frustrating about it is is sitting here, watching a kid like Jake go to BYU, obviously mature into being a really good quarterback. Yes, had things to work on, but certainly was leading them to great places, to now have this issue come up off of a couple of really bad decisions off the football field. And now we don't know where, obviously you're going to go, or where his career takes him. Everyone on X today speculating about Notre Dame and, what's his next school. I think we're getting ahead of it. I think that there's a really good chance that Jake Retzlaff has been working hard, keeping himself in shape and everything. But I don't know. I think it's unclear how easy it will be for him to find a new team and a new home.
Oh, I think that's exactly right. It's June 1st, and he still is not withdrawn, and we haven't seen his name in the transfer portal. I think that's significant. And I think with this lawsuit withdrawn, that's a huge win for Jake Retzlaff. But you cannot excuse the fact that Jake Retzlaff made a decision to have sex with a woman that has very strong ties to the Utah football program, allegedly, according to this filing. You look at the fact that she filed a civil lawsuit, allegedly went and sought medical care days after this sexual assault happened, allegedly. And then according to Jake Retzlaff's response, she filed a lawsuit, he filed a response. According to his response, they had amicable, lighthearted text messages exchanges long after this event took place into reportedly February of 2024. This happened Thanksgiving 2023. We're talking about 3-4 months later. And all of this because you didn't pay attention to what happened with Trevor Bauer. Because if it is in fact true, and if the picture that's being painted of this woman is true, she's a Utah fan who, it cannot be looked past, may have had an agenda, and in my opinion, I think it's a really important talking point, may have had an agenda to target Jake Retzlaff at BYU. He's not LDS. He's Jewish. He is not in the LDS community. He is an outsider at BYU. How difficult is that, do you think, to target somebody like that with a woman from Salt Lake City?
And I think, California roots, and I bring that up just to say, like, typically, football players in California, in my experience, are definitely more social and more, are great with people. California is a place where you're outside all the time, you're with your friends all the time. I just feel like it's, guys from California just are good with people typically. And this is somebody who, again, let's not forget his story, right? Obviously didn't get the starting job in high school, had to grind that out, and only got an opportunity due to injury. And then basically since then balled his ass off, and then, got all the way to BYU, earned that job over the other options. And then, the first year was pretty average, didn't know the playbook, obviously was learning it. We all remember that season, and just grew from there. So I think what's difficult here is that, like, personally, I have a problem with the idea that, hey, like, this happened several years ago, like his first year in the state.
Yeah.
And then there's this rise to prominence that happens through his hard work and his dedication to what he does. And then this pops up. And I'm not just saying that today. I brought that point up the day this came out. I was like, hey, well, this is kind of interesting timing. So again, like I said 5 minutes ago, we all have our feelings around this, and I certainly have a lot of opinions on it. But I think what it really comes down to is, yeah, there may have been an agenda. Yeah, I mean, this is really the first time.
How do you let this happen?
Yeah, and that's what's hard is, like, I part of me agrees with that. Like, how do you not have the foresight as the starting quarterback at BYU to say, maybe and let me rephrase that, because we need to be careful with that, because at the time this happened, he wasn't the starting quarterback at BYU.
He was a nothing.
He was a nothing. And so again, that just brings me back to, hey, well, wait a minute. Like, what was the goal here? And part of me, and again, all speculation, no facts, just me thinking off the top
Your
of my head.
opinion.
I'm sitting here looking at this story developing, and I'm like, well, hold on a second. This happened when you basically just showed up on the scene in Provo and you weren't anybody. You guys did what you did. And then this just kind of hung out for, a year and a half or whatever. And now you've grown in prominence and stature, and now this popped up. And so I've always felt like it never quite added up to me.
But what did I say when this news broke? There's a reason it didn't go criminal.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, the reason is there wasn't enough evidence.
Right.
The Provo Police Department straight up said there was no actionable evidence. So if the timeline is to be believed, this event happened Thanksgiving 2023. 2 days later, according to reports, she goes to the hospital, has a rape kit done. And then nothing. And you're texting back and forth all through December, all through January, into February. Nothing. Jake goes on to win the job, 11-2, and now you want to file a lawsuit.
Yeah, it feels like you guys did your thing. You talked for a couple of months, fizzled out, like college kids, totally get it. You guys went on with your life. Dude goes on to ball out, and they have a great year. Disappointing in the end, I think we all agree, but, great year. And then this pops up. And what's so odd to me is that it popped up. It went public the day you got back from going to Jerusalem and taking a huge trip and doing those. So I don't know, man. It's really difficult to sit here and be like, yeah, well, Jake Retzlaff did this to this girl, and it doesn't all add up. And that's what I have a lot of trouble with. And it's certainly that I don't know, honestly, if the Utah BYU dynamic has legs. It certainly works. It certainly could make sense. I think at a minimum, what we should be saying is that this is definitely a chapter in the Utah BYU book. No question about it. Utah fan, gets BYU starting quarterback, in some trouble. Yeah, I definitely think it's a conversation. But I just sit here and I say, dude, we're on the precipice of Big 12 media days, and BYU should be talking about portal activity, the season ahead, Jake Retzlaff, leading this team. And now instead we're going to talk about portal activity. How does the team get past this? What are you focused on?
Yeah.
And the quarterback battle that is inevitably going to have to take place in this camp again. And that to me is the bigger issue. We never because I think you're right. The Trevor Bauer thing is a perfect, example of this. A similar case, similar situation. We obviously got way more information about what happened in the Trevor Bauer case than we got here. But I think what's really interesting is we're going to sit here and we're going to watch Big 12 media days go down. And the questions about BYU of Kalani Sitake are going to be, well, hey, coach, how does how do you interpret what happened or what happened? And he's just going to have to no comment his ass off and say, we're focused on football. And so what I don't want to happen is for it to be this thing where it's like, no comment, or I can't talk about it or whatever. And it's a storyline the whole year. I mean,
I think it will be a storyline at Big 12 media days. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I will just sit here and continue to tell you, if you are a father, you need to talk to your sons and daughters about this. If you are, I just don't know how this mathed out for Jake Retzlaff. If it was just purely a sexual conquest, I guess I can at least understand that, right? You're a kid. You have signed an agreement in the Honor Code that you will live a chaste lifestyle. You will not have sex outside of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times are we going to talk about the trappings of social media? How many times are we going to talk about the trappings of sex? How many times are we going to talk about parents who don't want to talk to their kids about the trappings of social media and sex? How many times is this going to happen to a professional athlete where you wind up of your own fault or not, it's your fault, Trevor Bauer. It's your fault, Jake Retzlaff. It's your fault, Kobe Bryant. It's your fault. You name it. How many guys are going to go through this before somebody says, yeah, I know this girl's hot and I know she's on Instagram and she's paying attention to me. I probably shouldn't do this because this has danger written all over it. And I'm talking about like not high profile BYU quarterback, your son, your daughter, your nephew, your neighbor. How many times are we going to see this? And how many daughters are going to fall into this situation? Because we're all sitting here probably assuming that she's a gold digger after a paycheck. She's a Utah fan. She's trying to crush BYU. That's all well and good. What if this actually happened? What if what this woman's accusing Jake Retzlaff of actually happened exactly how she said it happened? Because do you understand what an absolute dark soul you have to be to make up the lies that she allegedly made up if you believe Jake Retzlaff? Because what did he do by saying he is not guilty, he is innocent of all of these charges? What did he say about that woman?
She's lying.
She's a liar.
Yeah.
She made it all up.
Yeah.
What if she didn't lie? And what if she didn't make it up and this actually happened? So again, we can sit here and theorize. We probably will never know. My guess is that settlement's going to be sealed and there will be a non-disclosure. But I think it's time that people stop making the same mistake over and over again. I don't get it. The other part of this that I think is so important, BYU in no way, shape, or form should alter or bend the honor code. Just shouldn't. And I don't know how many people realize this. BYU doesn't hide from the honor code in athletics. They use it as a recruiting tool. And you can point to AJ DeBansa, you can point to Jake Retzlaff. Any BYU athlete who is being recruited is talked to about the honor code by that head coach in that moment. They sit down, they read it together, they talk through it, and that kid signs it.
Well, and wouldn't you agree that at a minimum, before you agree to have, Kalani Sitake come to your house, you've thought to yourself and probably asked the question, would I even be okay playing under those circumstance, or not even playing, living in that circumstance and situation, right? So if BYU calls you or reaches out, you can't tell me that the first thought is hey, well, what does that mean? How do I have to live to make sure I'm in compliance? Kids are not stupid.
The recruiters talk to them about it. It is not something they're hiding from.
Yeah.
So I just think there's this whole crowd that's like, oh, Jake's being done wrong. No, he's not. BYU is treating him unfairly. No, they're not.
Yeah, I don't understand the outrage on X about the honor code. It's not difficult to understand. It's been in existence for how long? I just don't think it's that difficult. And again, there's been plenty of athletes, now and in the past, and I'm sure in the future, that are going to thrive at BYU and not get sued for the things she was alleging.
And there are 10 times as many athletes who won't go to BYU because of the honor code.
Which, again, is fine.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yep.
Don't say yes and then break it and look like an idiot. You can't do that.
To anybody who's telling you that it is unjust, that it is unrealistic, that it is punitive and it's not fair and it's against their right. No, it's not.
No, what's not fair is Jake Retzlaff making a bad decision that's going to cost hundreds of kids a good football season at BYU, because there's no way about it. And I don't care how much of a BYU homer you are. There may be a quarterback on that roster 7 games into the season that just blows people's doors off and is amazing and is some kind of sensation. That may happen. I don't know. But what I do know is a fact is this team is not nearly as confident heading into the season as they were.
No, they don't have a proven performer at quarterback.
And once again, here we are talking about, hey, who's BYU going to put at quarterback? Because we've been talking about this, 3 out of the last 5 years, right? Like that's been the conversation. Y'all wanted, Bohannon, we had, I mean, how many different names the last several years? And it was nice that we could finally start talking about the defense a little bit. Let's talk about the running room. Let's even talk about the O-line. But we can't do that anymore. So I just think if you're the person saying it's unjust, it's not fair, it's, somehow Jake Retzlaff isn't being treated properly.
Yeah.
Listen, he's come on the show a bunch of times. That's as far as I know him. And in those times when he's come on the show, he seems like a decent guy. Seems like a good dude. Most people say he's a good dude. So again, if a good dude makes a bad decision, you got to deal with those consequences. So as far as I'm concerned, he's not been treated unfairly. He signed a document. It's basic contract law. You violated that clause. You're out of BYU. Let's see where you land. Because he's going to now show us who he really is.
Yeah.
Now you got to figure out where you're going.
I think it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out and what exactly this is. But don't get this wrong. Jake Retzlaff is 100% responsible for the position he finds himself in. He made a decision, and a really bad decision, that put him in the jackpot here.
And we've all dudes have been in this position. Hey, I'm going to a party. I'm in a certain situation. I've got a certain opportunity to get physical with somebody. Should I or should I not take that opportunity? What are the implications of taking advantage of that opportunity? We have all been there. We have all had the opportunity to say yes or to say no. And, based on that decision, good or bad things will happen for you. I don't think, I agree with that completely. And people get all pissy in the comments section when you say things like that he's 100% responsible for this.
No doubt.
But I agree with it. I mean, she never would have had the opportunity to civilly sue you if you'd have not done if you'd have just simply not let her through your door.
If you had not gotten on social media, you had never met this woman before. Let this sink in. You'd never met this woman before. And I think it's important to tell this story. Jake Retzlaff and this woman chatted on social media for a certain amount of time. They were planning to meet each other. It never worked out. Jake Retzlaff said, "Hey, I'm having a party with some friends. They're going to come over, teammates. We're going to play some video games. Why don't you come on over and hang out?" Great. The woman agrees. She brings a friend with her. They hang out. By all accounts, it goes well. The friend that the girl brought with her left. Everybody left. Retzlaff and the Jane Doe are apparently laying in bed watching a movie. And depending on what you believe, at a minimum, they had consensual sex, which Jake Retzlaff admitted to in a court filing. She says a heinous sexual assault took place. And at that point, she allegedly leaves. We don't know who she outcried to. There are varying reports about what she told the police on what timeline. Hey, I don't want to name this guy. Then the police said to her, well, there's another football player being investigated for a sexual assault. We'd really like that name. She agrees a little bit later to tell them it's Jake Retzlaff. She gets a rape kit 2 days after the alleged assault happened. There's no actionable evidence. She sits on it for about 1.5 years and then files a civil lawsuit. And it does not ring true to me. It does not ring true to me at all. And I will again say, if Jake Retzlaff signed the honor code, this is Jake Retzlaff's fault. He made a decision to hook up with a girl he had never met the first time he met her. And as a high-profile quarterback at BYU, you got to be better than that. As a quarterback, you cannot, because it's alleged that this woman had sex with multiple Utah football players and was known to the Utah football program, allegedly. Did you not know that? You're hooking up with it. It's just, the whole thing sucks.
Yeah.
And again, you committed to a chaste lifestyle when you took your junior college offer from BYU. You committed to a chaste lifestyle. And I like Jake as a guy from our limited exposure to him. He was a phenomenal quarterback at BYU. He's in this position because he made bad decisions. It is what it is. And everybody's speculating where he's going to go and what he's going to do. And nobody knows where he's going. He's not officially in the transfer portal. I'm telling you, it just won't, it doesn't end well. And as far as BYU goes, here's the problem for BYU. BYU doesn't have a proven quarterback. And again, I'm going to tell you, if you're the BYU fan who's like, oh, Jake throws too many interceptions, and okay, look at what's on your roster. Because how many BYU fans were on Twitter over the weekend being like, oh, good, I'm glad he's gone. He fumbles and he turns the ball over and we've got better behind him. Who's better behind him? Because I'm telling you now, I know that roster inside and out. And I can tell you that when I look up and down their quarterbacks, Trayson Bourget is not better than Jake Retzlaff. They're not even in the same zip code. Not even in the same zip code. You look at like McKay Hillstead, go look at his limited exposure and then tell me he's a better option than Jake Retzlaff.
It's not the best situation, and we all know that.
It's not. It's not. And you start to try and guess and hope and wonder, and there is nothing
That's
behind.
What I'm saying. It's a futile exercise because you don't know anything about any of these guys yet. You haven't seen them at the college level. You haven't seen them against college talent, and I think that ultimately,
no, you have. McKay Hillstead in his 1 year at Utah State threw the ball 158 times. And 8 of those were interceptions. He's not good. He's not ready. He's not proven.
Yeah.
You have a Heisman Trophy candidate in Jake Retzlaff if he comes back. So the idea that BYU fan is hoping to push him out the door, dude, watch what you wish for because you just might get it. That'd be my point.
Yeah.
So the guy had the opportunity to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league.